Well, that's a wrap on semifinals, so let's talk about it.
Texas and the 2024 CrossFit Games.
I, for one, am actually a little bit bummed that semifinals is over, and you know what? Clair Toomey might be too.
I definitely have watched them. I think that they're just really entertaining. So last year, when I didn't get to compete, I got to watch them and didn't realize how exciting it is to watch.
I thought it was really awesome that she said how much she enjoyed watching semifinals last year when she had to take the year off. It is a really, really fun time of the season, and this weekend was a ton of fun to watch. So let's talk about who's going to Fort Worth, who's not going to Fort Worth, and we will start with Clair Toomey over on the women's side. And one of the funny things is she didn't even look that happy that she won this. When they called her name once they were announcing the winners, she kind of looked, I don't know, mad. And maybe she was mad that she had her worst semifinals finish in one of the event, and that would be, it would tie her worst finish, and that was a third place in that handstand walk. I mean, that's what? that she had 5 wins and that won third place. She demolished the weekend. There were some people that didn't pick Tia to win. I think Andrew Heller was one of them, and I'm like, how? Who? What? I don't even know what to say to the idea that some people didn't pick Clair Toomey to win this, especially after watching it. But even prior to watching it, she's the GOAT. I have no words. I really don't know what to say about that. I guess they were hopeful for something more exciting and interesting than it was going to be. But it was cool to see Tia come back and just see how dominant she is and how she is coming back to take names in Fort Worth. And she's not going to let Laura hold that crown, at least not without a fight. So it was cool to see just how dominant Tia was, because Tia won this in much more dominant fashion than Laura won the European semifinal in week 1. No one even contended with Tia. She never fluctuated from the top of the leaderboard. I mean, she had 3 consecutive wins. So how would that ever happen anyway? But yeah, Tia, winner, your 2024 North America East semifinal winner and your 2024 CrossFit Games winner, I think. So let's move on and talk about other people in North America East, because North America East was exciting up until the announcements. There were just surprises all around, and it was a great semifinal. Probably the best semifinal. We probably assumed that going into it as well, but it proved to be exactly what we thought it was going to be. So in second was someone I had on the podium when I'd made my predictions, and that is Alexis Raptis. And I've said, I think there's a chance Alexis Raptis has the capacity to win the CrossFit Games. And I think finishing in second in semifinals just shows how good she is. And she's still fairly young. She's 25. I think she's an athlete to continue to watch, and she'll be at the games for years to come. So awesome to see Alexis Raptis going back to Madison, but she's instead going to Fort Worth. And I believe Alexis Raptis has competed in Carson, Madison, and Fort Worth. So that's pretty cool. I mean, so has Clair Toomey, but Alexis is younger. She competed as a teen over in Carson. In third, we have Emma Lawson, and I wasn't very surprised to see her in third. Fantastic athlete, just very consistent all weekend. Again, never threatened for the top of that podium because, yeah, no one did other than Tia, but looked really good all weekend, kept very consistent. She talked a little bit about her mental game and how she's been working on that over the last year, and she was just having fun when she went home at night with her family. They were playing games, they were keeping it light, and it seemed to work well, and she finished on the podium at semifinals. And then in fourth, who I believe I had in fourth in my predictions, Danielle Brandon, she just kind of did what she needed to do all weekend, didn't win any events, 5th, 8th, 7th, 10th, 10th, 5th, so all finishes within the top 10, was in that top heat. There was never really a question. She went into the last event having already clinched. It was just, you know, she was just doing consistent things, which is something you want to see from athletes at this point of the season, because a lot of them who are trying to get on the podium at the games, they're not necessarily peaking for this. This is just a part of getting to the next step. So she looked good. She looked solid. In fifth, actually, this was a kind of surprising athlete, Shelby Neal. And I believe I had Shelby Neal making the games in my predictions, but I didn't think she would look this good all weekend. She just never really was in doubt. She was in that third heat on day 2, but she had solid finishes and she got better as the weekend went on. Her worst finish was that event 1, which is what we thought it was going to be, but it was 15th, which really wasn't that bad. And then she had a 12th, the 12th, the 7th, 2nd, and 8th. Shelby Neal didn't really leave any doubt, coming back for her second season and just looking like she belongs. After that, Haley Adams, she came in 6th place, and she is definitely someone we need to talk about for a second. Awesome to see Haley making it back after she took a year off, and she was unsure during that year, at least when she initially announced it, if she was going to be coming back to CrossFit ever. Like, that year may have been just permanently off, sort of what we've seen with Mal O'Brien. And that's not what happened. She took some time, she took a break, she reset, and now she's come back and made it back to the games after not even really training for a full year. So pretty impressed. It's nice to see a happy Haley Adams. She looks happier out there. And she basically had, well, she had home runs. She had some decent finishes, and then she had a really bad one. So she was in 2nd in the first event to, you know, Clair Toomey. And then she was 35th in event 2. She posted on Snapchat about how bad her double unders were, and that's why she got that placement. And I thought it was funny, and I like that she made light of it, because that's kind of what you got to do sometimes. That's how you keep a positive headspace. And she's like, if you need double unders help, contact me. Don't do that. She struggled, but she did enough. That 35th finish, she made up for it with a 2nd place finish in event 3, a 1st in event 4, then an 8th in event 5, which for that snatch ladder, Haley not being known as a strong athlete, 8th is a fantastic finish, and then a 15th with those heavy dumbbells in event 6. So overall, I think Haley Adams did really well this weekend. In 7th, we had Brooke Wells, and she was also making a comeback this weekend. Started out in that 2nd heat for, like, the lesser heat is what I mean, the first heat really, for event 1 of the competition because of a penalty she received in quarterfinals, but then just was fairly consistent all weekend. She had one bad finish on that rope climb event. Rope climbs have been a nemesis of hers for a long time. But other than that, just really solid finishes. Paige Semenza in 8th, just quietly qualifying, which is exactly what I thought she would do in my predictions. And she did as I thought. In 9th, this was a surprise, a total surprise. Probably the most surprising out of all of this, out of all the people, at least on the women's side, is Chloe Govin-David making it in 9th position. And when they announced her name, she looked surprised too. And I'm like, if you're surprised, I'm surprised. So she just did really well in the final event, had some decent finishes. She was like middle of the pack, a little bit better than middle of the pack, a 19th, a 18th, 18th, then an 8th, 14th, and 6th. That last event just propelled her into the field, and really impressed there. And then she also had some help by some people who fell apart, and we will get to that in a second. So in 10th, we have Caroline Stanley, and she was pretty consistent all weekend. She had one bad finish in event 4, which was the handstand walk event. But other than that, pretty decent finishes all around. And then in 11th, Lexi Neal, a rookie making her way to the CrossFit Games, very young, 21 years old, had a not great start to the weekend and not a great end either. So it was in question. She only beat the 12th person by 1 point, but in the middle did pretty consistently. So 12th, the heartbreaking position, that was Annika Greer, and she looked crushed. And I hope and think she'll come back from this stronger, but this has been a position she's become very familiar with, and I'm sure she's tired of it. And she looked really, really sad out there. 1 point separated her, and she struggled on that event 6, and event 1 was really bad for her. And then in the middle, she just had pretty good finishes, a 4th, an 8th, a 4th, and an 18th. Heartbreaking for Annika Greer, and I hope we see her at the games one day, but it won't be this year. So who didn't qualify? Because that is a thing too. Erica Folo was in a qualifying position and was a popular pick to be a rookie at the games this year. She just fell apart on that final event. She ended up getting a 39th place finish, could not hold on to those dumbbells, looked like she was falling apart, looked like she mentally wasn't in a good place anymore. And it was sort of a bummer to see. Amanda Barnhart, a surprising one not to qualify. I did talk about how she's had some different challenges this year. She adopted a son who is, wasn't a baby, was like a toddler, a little bit older, out of a bad situation. So really, really honorable thing that she did, but definitely a challenge that changes your training and changes how you go about all of this. So definitely a bummer that we won't be seeing Amanda Barnhart make her way to Fort Worth, at least not as an athlete. But we could see her again next year. After that, Ashley Wozni in 15th. And she had a better weekend as the weekend went by. She finished with a 5th, a 4th, and 11th. It just wasn't enough at the time. Fee Sagafi was sitting in a qualifying position for a little bit, but a 32nd on the row handstand workout, and then a 20th on that final event just put her into a hole. And then in 19th, and this is an athlete I actually want to say did very well. It's a little bit of a different reaction to this athlete's position, but Lydia Fish, she finished in 19th, and I think she's an athlete we'll look at in the future, an athlete that will break into that games field. She's only 20 years old, was in a really competitive position for part of the weekend. Things just got a little bit heavy for her on the snatch ladder and then on those dumbbells at the end. But up until that point, really Lydia Fish was making a name for herself. And I think she's a name we should look out for as things continue and as the years go on. So definitely impressed with her. And 19th might not sound good, but I think just the beginning. And finally, the women, Carolyn Prevost, she finished in 26th position. I said in my predictions that she probably wouldn't make it and that we'll probably see her in the Masters in the future. I do think that's her future. I think her and Paige Semenza are sort of similar athletes in the way we think of them, not necessarily in their physicality, but where they place at the games and the kind of athletes they are in this semifinals field. And I think Caroline has just sort of fallen off. She's 34 years old. She's getting closer to Masters. And I think really that's where her headspace is probably going to be going forward, or at least should be, because her placements are just sort of fallen off the last year. And I think that just might be where things are now, which is still okay. The Masters games are also awesome. Most of the CrossFitters in the world are actually Masters athletes. And I think more focus on the Masters is a great thing because that's more comparable to what the average CrossFitter does anyway. So Caroline can go make a name for herself and maybe win that next year. Okay, time to move over to the men's side of things. And just like we had a games champ as the winner on the women's side of things, it looked about the same on the men's side, but it was much, much closer on the men's side. So in first, you had Jeff Adler, and he had 546 points. In second, you had the fittest American man last year at the Games. Jeff Adler is Canadian. The fittest American man in Dallin Pepper, still a super young athlete, 22 years old, won as a teen. I think he has the capabilities to win as an individual, like as an adult man, in the future. He was only 3 points behind Jeff Adler, and 3 points behind Dallin Pepper was Roman Krennikov. So that podium, so tight. And those three guys, I mean, they could be the three guys on the podium at the Games. This field was stacked in both the men and women's division. And I guess you can probably say that for the men and women's side, but both those men, all of those men, all three of those men, incredible weekends for all of them, except, well, Jeff Adler and Dallin Pepper all had top finishes in the top 10. Roman Krennikov had one finish outside of the top 10, and that was the snatch ladder. Snatch is not his best lift. He finished 12th there. I mean, if he finished 10th there, Roman Krennikov would possibly be our winner of the event. Yes, I think based on the scores, if Roman Krennikov had finished 10th in the snatch, he would have been our winner. So, I mean, that says a lot. And I think Roman over more events does better. So I think, I mean, Roman's still super fit. Third, like, this leaderboard is so tight. It's going to be a fun time in Fort Worth. We've got some great athletes going. This is an awesome podium for North America East. But then the people off of the podium are also pretty great. So in fourth, we have Jason Hopper, and I believe I heard something about how he couldn't even lunge leading into this workout and was just trying to get through it. And that might possibly be why I also heard that he wasn't gonna push this final workout if he was in a safe position. And he finished 10th. I mean, that's not a bad finish. Jason Hopper going back to the CrossFit Games. I do think that he's a little bit below the men above him. And these scores also say that, because Jeff Adler, 546. Dallin Pepper, 543. Roman Krennikov, 540. That is 6 points differentiating those people. Jason Hopper, 468. He was 72 points behind Roman Krennikov. I mean, yeah, different leagues. But he was solidly in fourth, Jason Hopper. In fifth, Samuel Cornwallier, and he just looked pretty good all weekend. Didn't really do anything that was like, oh my God, look at him. He did pretty well in that snatch workout, but other than that, he just kind of was consistent and punched that ticket to go back to the CrossFit Games. Jack Rosema, he did do something. He won that snatch event, which was pretty big, but the rest of his finishes, again, they're just all 12th, 16th, 13th, 9th, 1st, and then a 6th. So it's all really consistently top half all weekend with some top 10s. And that's what you need to do in this field. In 7th, Saxon Panchek, making his way back to the Games after having to withdraw last year for an injury. And he also had really, really good finishes. The end of the weekend wasn't super kind to him. That snatch, 15th. And then the final workout with those heavy dumbbells and the bike, he's a smaller athlete, 21st. So he took a hit on the workouts that, mass move mass. And he doesn't have a lot of mass. He's a little bit of a smaller boy. He's 185 pounds and 5'9". So, he's smaller, but he didn't hold him back. He finished in 7th, and that's all you got to do. Although the 3rd, the 6th, and 8th, you would think he would be a little bit better than 7th at the end of the weekend, but those last two events kind of nailed him. Austin Hatfield, a rookie that everyone pretty much had in their field and safely made it into the field to go to Fort Worth. And he had some really great finishes to start the weekend, 5th, a first in event 2. Then he had some more okay finishes, 23rd in event 3, 12th, 13th, and 14th on day 3, but it was all enough to stay in that top heat and to just be in a fairly secure position where he just didn't have to implode to maintain that position. Alexander Caron, I was unsure about him because of the injury he had last year. I wasn't really sure if he was 100% healthy, and he looked good all weekend. He struggled a little bit on the handstand walk event. I was worried about his pec during the muscle-ups because he kind of caught a muscle-up a little bit funny on that final event, but he finished 3rd. It was totally fine. I was a little bit worried, though, as he went to lunge because I'm like, oh, my God, that last muscle-up, did he do something there? He didn't, I think. I hope. In 10th, this athlete was a bit of a surprise. I don't know if I can really say surprise. He is an athlete that's been at the games many times, missed last year for an injury as well. Travis Mayer. He's an athlete that you can rely on to do the things you need to do at the end. He's not an athlete that implodes at the end. We will get to another one of those. But he did what he needed to do, finished in 10th. He was out of the field, out of the top 11 going into the final event. He was in that 3rd heat, not the final heat, but he did what he needed to do. He got an 8th place on that final event, and he's going to Fort Worth. So I'm happy to see Travis Mayer make his way back. And finally in 11th, Luke Parker. I was worried that he wasn't going to make it back. Had a little bit of trouble on that lunge at the end, ended up finishing 16th in that final event. And he was, he sort of was a little bit behind all weekend. He was in that 3rd heat, not in the 4th heat, but he just did enough. Never had a top 10, well, he had a 10th finish. He never had a better than a 10th finish. He never had a single-digit finish. But it was enough. It was enough, and he cleared it by 15 points over Seth Stovall, who also is a Mayhem athlete. So cool to see Luke Parker going back. Gonna have a big summer. He's about to have a baby, and he's gonna be at the CrossFit Games. So a lot for Luke to do. In 12th, on the men's side, in that position just right outside, was Seth Stovall. Bummer for him. Had a decent weekend. Just, sometimes you just have that 20-second finish on the first event, and that was really what killed him. If he had a 18th finish in that, he'd probably be going to the CrossFit Games. Or, maybe like a 15th. A 15th he would be going for sure. Taylor Self, he looked okay throughout the weekend. He had a 28th in event 2, which was the heavy front squat workout. He had a bunch of knee surgeries, so we knew that was going to be a difficult event for him, and that kind of put him into a hole. And then he had a 22nd on the handstand workout, which again are the 2 things that sort of held him back. Other finishes, 11th, 9th, 14th, 9th, super solid. I don't think Taylor Self was planning on qualifying for semis this year, so I think maybe next year he'll be able to make his way into that field. In 14th, so I was mentioning the opposite of Travis Mayer doing Trevor things. The opposite of that is what Tyler Christoffel does in the final event, which is implode. He just does that. I don't know. If he goes with this, if Tyler Christoffel comes into the last event and he is on the bubble or like in that last spot or second to last spot, do not book any tickets to the CrossFit Games for him, because he's probably not going. He will probably mess that up. And I hate to be a jerk and say it like that, but he does it consistently. You can bet money on this almost. And he did it again. Maybe just not good at lunging, but yeah, 29th place finish on that final event. Other than that, a 10th, 9th, 14th, 17th, 16th solid finishes, then a 29th. I don't know. I don't even understand how he does it, to be honest. He seems so prepared for the rest of the events. Is it nerves? I don't know. Alex Vigneault, another athlete we were talking about to possibly be, I had him on my outside looking in. He ends up finishing 16th, about where I thought he would. And then Jack Farlow, who did do pretty well on the final day to make it into 17th, but gosh, those first two events were bad. And as soon as that happened, I'm like, I thought he might have had a chance to make it back from 34th. Annika Greer was in the same place, and she ended up almost making it to the games. But then she got 37th in event 2, and I'm like, okay, we can call it time of death. Jack Farlow, he's not going. And he didn't. So, after the first day and a half, it wasn't surprising. Spencer Panchek in 20th. I didn't expect him to make it either. Ben Smith, 25th. Did not expect that to happen. But Ben Smith is 34, so he's an athlete we can see as a Masters next year, which would be cool. He won as an individual. Maybe he'll win as a Masters. He's obviously still pretty fit. He qualified for semis. I don't think that was necessarily his goal this year. So Ben Smith, I think we'll definitely keep hearing Ben Smith's name, I believe, but probably not on the individual field. Will Morad withdrew, but he finished 36th. There are athletes that finished the entire event and didn't do as well. So I had Will Morad in my field to qualify. The injury is what I think made the difference there. But I think we'll see him at the Masters games as long as he gets healthy. Okay, let's take a quick look at the teams. I know they finished up on Saturday, so people have already heard about this, but let's just glance at them and I'll go through them very quickly, I promise. Peak 360 in first. They had a first, sixth first. Very similar to Clair Toomey, won almost everything except for one. And Noah Olson was on the broadcast. He thinks they need a little bit more practice working together, but honestly, those are really solid finishes. I think they're the most dominant team out of semifinals. Look at them for the top of the podium at the games. I will tell you now, I will make another video predicting the games winners. I'm going to probably have Peak 360 at the top of my podium at the games unless something happens, someone gets injured or something. Yeah, they look great overall. CrossFit Mayhem is in second, CrossFit 1124 in third. 8th Day CrossFit, who came in that bottom heat, finishes in fourth. Just really impressive what they did, especially on day one when they weren't in the best heat. Finished second in that first event, setting that out of the first heat. Very, very impressed with them. CrossFit Reignited in fifth. Ocean State CrossFit Surge in sixth. They came in out of quarterfinals in second, so doing what we kind of expected. CrossFit Somos Mayhem in seventh, and in eighth, we had TTT CrossFit Endure taking that final spot to the games. A lot of these teams are teams I predicted to be here, teams that we expect to be at the games, and teams that have games experience in one way or another. So this is a pretty strong set of teams coming out of the East and heading to the CrossFit Games. So in addition to the 11 women, the 11 men, and the 8 teams we had coming out of the East, we also had 2 other semifinals, and I'm going to briefly touch on them. I will explain real quick why I'm only briefly touching on these other semifinals. The truth is, in the East, we have potentially all of the winners of the games. The women's winner, the men's winner, and the team's winner. These are athletes that we have to pay attention to. There's a lot of top 10 athletes in the East. Africa and South America, there might not be any in those regions. They're still incredible athletes, definitely worth watching. But when we're doing these kind of things, you gotta put the attention on the athletes that are actually going to make the biggest difference. It's just sort of how it is, and it's sort of what people care about. So I will touch on these athletes because they're all incredible, and I think we should all hear about them. But I'm not going to focus as much on them because they are not going to do as much. But let's talk about them because they are still way fitter than me, and probably way fitter than you, unless you're someone who qualified for the North America East semifinal, then you're way fitter than probably all of us. Okay, in South America, we have 3 women, 3 men, and 2 teams. So for the women, in first, Victoria Campos, not a surprise. Who we expected to come out first out of this region, and she'll be going back to the games. Julia Cato, also an athlete that has been to the games before, so not super surprising. And then in third is Andrea Pinheiro, and she is 41 years old, probably already qualified for the Masters Games, and will likely be one of the oldest women ever to compete in the women's field, I think. I think Sam Briggs was pretty old last time she competed. Old is relative, but I mean old in this sense. 41 is not old in the grand scheme of life, but 41 is old to compete in the open division at the CrossFit Games. But pretty cool. In first on the men's side, I was kind of surprised. Guy Malheiros finishing in first. He had a couple event wins, couple of seconds, sixth in the running event. Although don't take that to mean that he's like fixed his running. The truth is, this field is just a lot weaker. In North America East, he definitely would not have taken sixth on that event. No freaking way. In second, we have Kalyan Souza, and in third, we have Bruno Marins. I'm not 100% that's how you pronounce those, but you know, it's like that. And if we head over to the teams, we've got two teams out of this region. That is Vitoria CrossFit Center 1 Movimento. They were in first after the first day, and I thought they would probably be in second because I thought AR1 CrossFit Mayhem Unity would be the winning team out of this region. They did come in second. They will be going to the games, but this Movimento team did better than I expected. And let's just touch on Africa. That is a 1-1-1 region. One man, one woman, one team. That's it. So for the women, Gemma Rader came in first. Not an entirely surprising person to come in first. Wasn't the person I had, but definitely someone I looked at when I was making my predictions. And on the men's side, we had Ruin Potgieter. Maybe. I am a little bit more surprised about that. I didn't predict him to win, but he won pretty handedly, winning by 60 points over the second place man. And our final team going to the CrossFit Games, this was not a surprise. It is CrossFit Tyger Valley Relentless. They had a first, a second, a first, and a second. So, you know, could do a little bit better, but not a whole ton better. That's who I thought was going to make it. That's who made it. I don't think they'll be super competitive at the games. They didn't finish event 4. No one in this field did. So it's just the level of competition in Africa is different than a lot of the other semifinals. It's more of a developing area for CrossFit. Awesome to see CrossFit developing in different parts of the world, but they are still a little bit behind when it comes to competing at the games. So our games field is set. This is who we have going. I'll be doing lots more like predictions and talking about what we're gonna see at the games and stuff like that. Also, I'll be doing videos about like my training as a more normal human who has a full-time job in addition to doing this. And lots more content to come. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe. I would really, really appreciate that. Like this video, leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite part of semifinals is. Maybe I'll talk about my favorite parts in a video. Maybe that's a video to come. Maybe that's more reason to subscribe. I appreciate you all for watching. I'll get Carson because I think that's why a lot of you watch. Carson, come here. He's laying in his bed. It is nighttime when I'm recording this. He is tired. Carson, come here. Okay. This is how you pay your rent. You come up here and you say hi to the vlog and people like the video more, right? Like the video for more sleepy boy. Okay, we both appreciate you for watching. We'll see you in the next one, I'm sure. All right, bye. Oh, smile, buddy. I love you. High five.